Well, here we are back in the shop with the Curtiss 01B Falcon, and I've made some progress this week, and it's pretty great. It's kind of complicated, a little bit of a story. It doesn't look like much, but let's get to what has been done. So first and foremost, I need to tell you guys that I missed an update on the last video. I had performed this strut repair. It's all sanded back. I need to glass it, and I'll reapply some paint and blend that all in. Should be good as new. Pretty straightforward repair. CA and sandpaper. That's it. Up here on the hatch, you can see the hatch is installed, and it's looking good. I just had to do some real minor shaping on these pieces to get things to sit pretty flush. Still want to trim a little bit more on this rear because I know this can go down more, just because it will go down if the struts aren't in place. So that's just a trimming thing, and then I'll create a new brass piece since there's a blind nut on the back side of here. I'll use this to do a hold down similar to up here. This does not have a blind nut on the back side, but I did go ahead and squirt some fresh thin CA down the hole on the block on the inside so that those threads stay intact. And honestly, the clamping force here, just holding this down, will be more than enough. Not worried about that at all. So we're good there. Struts. We have struts. We have struts that are not only complete, but they are also the correct length. Getting them to the correct length, well, therein lies a story. Okay, so I looked at the plans and made the struts per the plans. Once I had the struts per the plans, I built 4 new struts, but I put the struts on the model per the plans. Okay, put them on, and the problem is that they were too tall. Okay, so the struts built per the plans were too tall. I say too tall, per the outer struts, the inner plane struts per the plans. So because these were too tall, though, the struts, if you recall from the previous video, the new inner plane struts, those were shorter, right? Because they weren't per the plans, right? So what I think happened is the original builder built the model per the plans for the fuselage, and then when you put everything together, realized that, oh, these struts for the inner plane struts, those are not correct. And so he built inner plane struts that were correct for the cabane struts, or inner plane cabane struts that he had already built. Because that's a way more complicated thing to redo, especially the way he built it, where everything is like epoxied into the model and there's no hatch there. So that makes sense, at least in my mind as a builder. That makes sense. So that left me 2 options, right? Option 1 was to leave these struts per the plans and redo the outer struts like the modified ones, which were we could get a template for based off of the old struts, right? But we know the airplane flies in that configuration, so that would be the safe way, but also the more expensive way because I didn't have enough material to make them. Okay, and honestly, guys, this aluminum stuff it's not cheap. Okay, but not exorbitantly expensive. Okay. So then the other aspect was I don't even get the right incidence. Okay, so the incidence was more or less correct. So what I opted for was to keep the outer struts, right? But I was able to measure how, with the original cabane struts installed, I was able to measure how short I was on the outer ones so that I could shorten these to an appropriate length. So that's what I did. I set the struts to a shorter length, and honestly, I nailed the incidence, got exactly 1 degree of negative incidence, And from there, I went to attach the outer interplane struts, and they were perfect. So all set, done. Now, so the last part of that story, is we have to shorten all of the wires. Let's get a little into how these wires work. So zooming in close to just this example that's already on the model, this is it's not round, okay? It's flat. If it would focus, it's flat, and then you see a wide portion, and so it is like almost like a simulated scale airfoiled wire, okay? Now, the issue with this is you have to cut it to length, and if I screw up, I'm hosed because I don't have any more of this. I don't even know where to get more of it. So I got to be careful. So let's see how this is fastened, right? Each end is, it's mechanically soldered. I say mechanically soldered because that's what it is. It's basically like plumbing. You've got a dab of solder here that's holding the two pieces of metal together. It's not aluminum brazed because this is steel. There's rust that forms on this that I've had to sand off when I was doing restoration work. And if I'm being perfectly honest with you, when I did the initial restoration work, there was one broken joint that I had to do a repair on. So I'm not new to this. It's really as simple as making sure that the metal overlaps and then heating it and applying some mechanical solder. Okay, let's get into that. All right, so when you go to do electrically soldering stuff, you can buy just generic. This is lead-free solder, flux 2% core, so it's got some silver in it too. But yeah, it's like standard run-of-the-mill basic electric solder, okay? Then there's metalwork solder. I have had this around for a long time. I don't use it very much. It is silver bearing. I don't even know the content. I don't know how this stuff works, but it's specifically for metalworking. I use this all the way back. You go way back in my YouTube history. Go to the Sikorsky build. I used this same roll on the Sikorsky build, and I used that for how many landing gears on World War I models and other struts. I used it on the CB recently too. So mechanical solder. You use this when you're not using an electrical joint, all right? You're trying to join two pieces of metal. Usually it's copper because copper helps flow the solder a lot better. But it also, you have to be really careful about your heat. You can overheat a joint and the solder will essentially be like a cold solder joint. It just won't be very strong. So you can't really use a direct flame. So my plan is that I have a small pencil soldering iron. It's like a Radio Shack, 45 watt or 60 watt. I can't even remember. I'll put a tip on that extension cord, have the model set up, and try to do everything as much as I can in place on the plane. You can protect the model using a sheet of aluminum foil just down below, so if any solder drops, it's going to hit that initially and it'll roll, right? So yeah, it'll be fine. You could use a piece of fabric. My experience with that is the fabric will hold to it and it'll hold the heat and will burn through and will go straight down rather than roll off. Just my experience. Your mileage may vary. But yeah, that's the goal. And so because this model takes so much space, it's massive. It's absolutely massive. And it would take up the entire shop. And that's why I set it up over where I exercise, because it's the only open place I have in the shop. So two things: I could spend like the next month making racks for all my models. Don't really want to do that. Need to do that. Don't really want to do that. Because I'm not going to give up my exercising. I need to stay in shape. But I could put on hold everything in the shop and just hunker down and get this done, which is what I'm likely inclined to do. But we also have 4 other projects that I'm working on. I've got the 2 minuets that I'm working on for Dubro, Old School Model Works. Soon we'll introduce other sponsors or partners in the project. But yeah, I've got those 2 planes that I'm currently working on. I've got the Saab 17, which I need to get back to, but the problem is that we're in winter and I need to paint. I'm at the paint stage. It's really hard to paint in cold, right? And I've got models scattered everywhere, so I can't paint outside. It's too cold to paint, so that's on hold. Could also work on the B-25. So the B-25, I can do more glass work, but that's really tedious and a lot of time. I've got to do both the wings. I've got one stripped down. See, I've got one stripped down and a bunch of parts ready to go. But yeah, I've got to do all of that fiberglass work and then the fill and the sanding. It's a lot of just tedious work that you guys really aren't all that interested in. So I'm going to find something to do that you guys are interested in the meantime, but that's the likely plan. Because I can't set this up, work on one thing for an hour, because it takes 20 minutes to assemble this model. So that's 20 minutes burned just setting it up, and it takes like another 10-15 to disassemble it. So that's a lot of time wasted just setting up, taking down every day just so that I can keep my workout space. Life, right? Problems, big model problems. So I'm done sitting on the chair. What you guys really want to see is the wings mounted, and you want to see me freeze my butt off outside showing it to you. So let me get that put together and we'll wrap up the video that way. All right, I'm freezing. It's cold, but she's together and everything looks nice and even. I'm very, very happy with this result. I gotta say, guys, it's been a lot of work for something that's a little bit simple, but if you're careful and you take time and you commit to yourself that you're gonna do it right, you'll have a great outcome just like this. I mean, absolutely massive. I love this model. It's definitely been one of my favorite projects to have in the shop in recent years. So thank you again, Adam Drain, for being a facilitator. I wouldn't necessarily call you a friend for this, but thank you. Anyway, keep working on your flying works of art, guys.